this is going to be a lovely topic that you're all going to see. Changing contours of South consumer. And to present this, I'd like to welcome Mr. K Ramakrishnan, MD, South Asia Worldpanel Division, Kantar. With a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity given, and I'm so happy to be present here. And I don't know if it's a great thing to be the first speaker, because usually you can't generally sense the mood of the audience as to whether are they a patient lot, are they an impatient lot. So I'm the bakra, I guess. So I'm willing to do that at this moment. Okay, so when I was initially when this brief of attending this session came to me, I was told that I need to speak about the omni-channel consumer, and particularly with reference to South. When I thought about it, I said that there's really nothing called an omni-channel consumer. There's a consumer who happens to dabble in multiple channels. So there's nothing called an omni-channel consumer. So I said, I'm not going to do that, and let me redefine it a bit by saying, is there a way in which we can see the consumer from the South in a different lens? I have to admit that this is going to be largely with an FMCG bias to it, though there are other parts in this, but I guess this will give you a sense of what we're talking about. Okay, so the important thing I need to tell you is, this one says that we're all here to tell some story, right? Today the story is about the consumer who's defined as the omni-channel consumer. We're talking about South and so on. Whatever story you say, keep your consumer at the center of it. This is not a new theory, right? Gandhian theory says consumer is not a nuisance to you. Consumer is the reason why we exist. So therefore, from that point of view, this is also said by today's speakers, and so saying the key is no matter whatever story you are here to tell, make the consumer your hero. And to that extent, if the first session is about understanding the consumer, I think perhaps we're doing the right thing. So I'm going to quickly touch upon South as a market. There is a reference to Tamil Nadu, but by and large, it's going to be South. The region, we all know the region. I mean, there are so many theories we have about South and Tamil Nadu, and it's all in our minds, right? Each of us has a theory about Tamil Nadu. And there's a lot of stereotyping that happens. Is that stereotyping backed by data? Is that to be believed? Is that to be countered? There are some points that I have which I can talk about. So therefore, first the region, the people, the behavior, the channels, and what is the recent inflation done, and possibly some recommendations. Let's first talk about the region. Now, something we all know is that huge coastline in the South. Does it have an impact on consumer behavior? It does. Some of these numbers might shock you. South of India has 84% non-vegetarians, right? As opposed to a 58% all India. Now that over-indexing is something which smashes theories in many parts of India. If you go to, let's say, Mumbai, which is where I live, or in Delhi, and if you tell somebody South India, they eat a lot of non-veg, they'll laugh at you. See, the South Indians that I've seen are vegetarians, right? That's the kind of response that they have. So the point is, there is a region, the region has a certain geography, and that geography results in certain behavior, and those are things to be known. Second, there's an extremely high level of population density as far as South India is concerned, and that population density comes with its own way of saying extremely high levels of social interactions in terms of word of mouth. And of course, because there is such a thick density, the role that the outdoor media plays is really, really huge here. So that's about the regional nuances that I want to talk about. Second, this is something that we know, but if you put it in numbers, highly urbanized part of Indian geography is in the South. Why do we see highly urbanized? The numbers are here. 41% of South India lives in urban centers. And if you take Tamil Nadu as a market, it's 48%. And what's the all India number? It's much lesser. It's only 29%. So it is a highly urbanized market. A lot of what we define as urban agglomerations, Tamil Nadu alone has 4 urban agglomerations. So hugely urbanized kind of market. And the rural part of South also mimics the urban part of South in a big way. Little bit about the people. Again, I don't want to give you the same facts that you may have seen somewhere, but some things which I found interesting and different is what I'm going to share with you. One, housewives. 58% of housewives in the South are above 45 in age. Now, we all say we are a young country, and very often we may have heard that South is very young and things like that, but if you talk housewife, I'm not being sexist here. When I say housewife, I'm talking about the person that decides on the purchase of household, anything. It could be male, female, whatever, working, non-working. 58% of them are above 45, and that has its implication in terms of purchase behavior. The same comparable number is 49%. Second, smaller family sizes, right? If you see the averages, 4.8 is the average size of a family in South, 5.6 in the rest of the country. Third, 61% of the households do not have kids below 14. So if you are having cute communications with kids in them, they may be liked, smiled at, but will it be relevant in terms of translating it into a purchase is something we need to think about. So these are important factors about South that have their implications in terms of what we do as marketers. Obviously, affluence has been spoken enough. South is a very affluent market and all, but how affluent is affluent? We define affluence in some way by the NCCS or SECS, we may call it ABCDE. AB is considered to be affluent. 58% of South is AB. The comparative number nationally is 52. Tamil Nadu number is 63%. So to that extent, the higher audiences are here. If you take per kg of what people pay for FMCG, per kg, it could be anything, whether it's atta or toothpaste or anything, combine all of them and convert them to kilograms per kg, South spends 11 rupees more. Tamil Nadu spends 22 rupees more per kg. So to that extent, that plays the role for the premium brands and their purchases as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned. Third point, that's true of any FMCG, any FMCG. Third, 15% of the population only is below poverty line. I'm talking about both the extremes, the premium being paid and also the lower end, whereas the corresponding number is 26%. The last point is extremely important, which is that global remittances, which means dollars, dirhams, whatever coming, 31% of global remittances come into South India, only for 1/5 of the population. 1/3 of the money for 1/5 of the population. So therefore, money, plenty of money, and I've spoken that. We all know this is a land where there are high octane movie buffs, right? So each of these movies is a South movie, done very well nationally. That's not what I'm here to talk about. Apart from the fact that they were successful nationally, in their own home markets, they were hugely successful. Look at the numbers some of these have. 155 crores, 428 crores, 221 crores in the home market, whereas the biggest hit national Hindi movie this year has been in comparable numbers. So to that extent, there's a huge home market for movie buffs as far as South is concerned. This is an extremely interesting point, which I found it something worth sharing. One is that there's a high degree of borrowing as far as the South household is concerned. General opinion that we have is conservative consumer would like to save, yes. Definitely there is a high degree of saving as far as South and Tamil Nadu is concerned. But look at this, 33% of South households purchase smartphones on EMIs. Big number. Second, the average borrowing or average loan amount disbursed to all population households, if you take, is by commercial banks, is 1.3 lakhs for the South. Same number is 77,000 rest of India, right? So therefore, clearly there's higher degree of borrowing, right? At the same time, 26% of the deposits into commercial banks are also from the South. So what are we doing? We are saving also and we are spending also, but we are not using our savings for the spending. We are borrowing to spend afresh. Right? So that's the difference about this market. Huge implication it has for all of us. So they actually want to have the cake and eat it too. They're having the cake, and to eat the cake, they're borrowing something from somewhere. They're happy about borrowing and managing their cash flows that way. So that's a big insight, I thought, for many of us to manage lives. These are some qualitative findings. I've shown you some numbers, but some qualitative findings these are picked up from in-depth interviews and groups and so on and so forth. Many of these terms you'll probably relate to: rootedness and cultural purity, of course, 100%. Aspiration to live in harmony, which means the degree of disharmony or degree of discord is much lesser in the South for sure. The third point being made is that adherence to social norms is pretty high. Progression is desired. There is a need to be completely progressive. There's a compulsive desire, but at the same time, there are boundaries to that. High degree of maturity emotionally. Realistic, logical, systematic. Now, what does this mean? All of these are some vague adjectives about people. But each of these has a relevance to the way you want to craft your brand, you want to craft your communication for your brand, and what relevance it has for the consumer of this market. Let's talk a bit about behavior. Okay, so we all know that there's a very hot and humid market, South, so there's no relevance for cold creams really in particular. But that said, if you see cold creams or any skin cream for that matter, if 100 units are sold rest of India, South sells 78 units and Tamil Nadu 62 units. This is despite the fact that when you ask people what is the relationship between fairness and success, fair people are more successful, is if that statement is agreed by more people in the south than in the north. I mean, if 100 people agree to that in the north or rest of India, 119 people agree to that in the south, 132 people agree to that in Tamil Nadu, which means they believe that if I'm fair, I will be successful. Even today, it's not a statement of 10 years back, right? So fairness is a desired, in spite of that, creams are not selling that much. But what is showing some difference is the fact that clearly there's an affinity towards fragrances. Talcum powder. Now, there's a big debate on whether talcum powder is about fragrance or fairness. You can debate this, but nevertheless, these are the numbers that we have, that it is higher. Deodorants, see the indexing, 100 versus 142, 100 versus 154, 50% more consumption as far as deodorants is concerned. Fabric conditioners. Now, fabric conditioners can have several higher order benefits like softness, purity and all that. But if you actually go and speak to people on why they like to use a fabric conditioner, it leaves a good fragrance in the clothes, right? So therefore, fragrance is a huge desirable property as far as South is concerned. Another big difference, market of caution, right? When they buy FMCG, they buy in smaller units. As you can clearly see here, the average pack size, 189 grams for rest of India, 168 for South, and 122 for Tamil Nadu. But they buy more packs. If you look at these numbers, 713, 751, and 926. Smaller units, but we buy more. South buys much more packs. South buys more packs for a reason. North also buy more packs. I mean, if you take North, like for example, 3 days back, I was making a similar presentation to a different audience, but that was focused on what they call as the Hindi heartland, right? Hindi heartland also buys a lot of small packs. But the reason for the purchase of small packs was fundamentally to do with affordability. But South and Tamil Nadu, the reason for purchasing small packs is the desire to try premium brands. So the desire to try premium brand, like for example, the need for introducing a brand as premium as Tresemme in a 10 rupee pack was Tamil Nadu. They started here in Tamil Nadu and then spread across. So therefore, there's a clear need here. They buy more premium brands. And second is the great freedom of portion control. This is the land that kind of gave birth to sachets, right? So to that extent, portion control is big. And the belief that smaller the pack, fresher the food when it comes to food. So all these are leading to these. High degree of natural behavior, which means faith in natural. Now, if the rest of India, if 5.6% of the total FMCG purchase is of natural origin, the number in Tamil Nadu is 10.8 and South is 9.9. All these brands, one of them is a sponsor here. That's not why I put it here. I didn't know that they were the sponsors. Medimix, Chandrika, Nail, Hammam, all of these brands, most of them are present solely in the South or at least have more than half their volumes from the South. Very strong affinity to natural. Now, complicated graph, but I'll simplify it by telling you the story around it. Basically, it's penetration in rest of India is the x-axis, penetration in South India is the y-axis. The closer the line is to the diagonal, it means both of them behave similarly. The farther the points are from the diagonal, it means they are behaving differently. The ones above are the ones where South is scoring. Like if you look at dishwash, noodles, TBCL is toilet bathroom cleaners, milk food drinks, ready to cook mixes, sanitary napkins, blah, blah. There's a theme, and the theme is what I've indicated on the South. One, clearly hygiene driven. So that's why you're seeing toilet bathroom cleaners becoming very big and all of those. Then we have a balance between modernity and tradition. Noodles and ready-to-cook mixes. So these are actually two things. One is the benefit of convenience and saving time, but at the same time doing it yourself of self-cooking. So it kind of matches both and so therefore balances traditionality and modernity. Third, doing several new things. In fact, South became the first coffee market while tea was big even before. And you take sanitary napkins, highest level of penetration started with in the South. Fabric conditioners, if we spoke about it earlier. So therefore doing the new. So these are some themes with which you can identify South markets and that continues into today. Now let's talk about communication to the audiences in the South. Now this is based on analysis of, thousands of advertising on what works and what which of the words have, what kind of advertising has worked in which parts of the market. Clearly, a textured kind of storytelling can work. It is not a straight, cutting to the chase or explicit product-centric communication, but storytelling seems to work in this market. You have Mumbai, which has a more evolved one, but it's only Mumbai as a city. But if you take West, it's a different story. But South, clearly, a textured storytelling can work. Now coming to the channel story, which is where we are. Now, these numbers here are actually penetration. This is not contribution to the total volume. If you look at this penetration, truly it's an omni-channel behavior as far as South is concerned. Everything is big, right? Including self-service, including door-to-door sales and everything. Now the surprise number here will be this online number to you, which says 9, 5 and 8. The penetration is 9% for all India, but South is 5 and Tamil Nadu is 8. This is only for FMCG. This is not for non-FMCG. As far as FMCG purchase is concerned, it still seems to be a little more on the traditional trade and not on the FMCG, not on the online. Now, a quick deep dive into what this online behavior is. One is, if you look at mobile phones purchases, clearly South and Tamil Nadu are higher than all India, which is on the graph on the left. Shopping through mobile phones, again, South and Tamil Nadu ahead of rest of India. But when it comes to FMCG, we see the numbers there. And then you can get back to that earlier figure that I told you about housewives being older here, right? The older housewives deciding on FMCG, continuing to rely more on traditional trade, rely more on even now kiranas, in spite of supermarket, in spite of Tamil Nadu having been the birthplace of modern trade and so on. So that's an interesting point for us to know the importance or the value that online plays as far as FMCG is concerned. And if you look at the channel loyalty as far as online is concerned, it's still the big players like Amazon and Flipkart, which are not specialists in grocery, right? The grocery specialists like Big Basket, etc., are bundled under others only. They're not big enough to be called out separately. And the second ones are what you call as a mix of online and offline, where you can place the order online and pick it up offline, etc. So the numbers are clearly telling a story here that South is not evolved enough in terms of grocery purchase through the online channel. But the behavior in the online world is pretty much similar as the offline world, which means more small packs, more number of packs being bought, etc. So the behavior is not very different. Okay? Having said that much about this subject of, let's talk a little bit about inflation, because Uman specifically said, what do we know about inflation and what's happening to the markets in the South? So this is a very, very interesting chart. Now, it's numbers and lines, but I'll kind of tell the story to you a little clearly. We start with 2019 and we end at 2022. Okay, you assume that there are 100 units of FMCG being bought as far as 2019 is concerned. South was the market, and the top line is Tamil Nadu. The second line, the green one, is South, and the rest is all India. You see the extent to which Tamil Nadu and South India hoarded or bought excessively during the lockdown phase. That is seen in those first few, right? And you see the huge curve there. Suddenly there was fear that they're not going to go, and they bought everything and kept it to themselves. Huge growth over there. And that growth stuck. It didn't come down. Can you notice those? There are some peaks like 120, etc., but it's still at 115 compared to 100. If you look at South, 110 versus 100. If you look at rest of India, if you look at 103 versus 100. So therefore, there is inflation, there is awareness of the inflation, but it doesn't seem to have impacted at least FMCG for sure. So to that extent, they may be playing with their FMCG purchases differently. Smaller packs, buying more often, any which way, but has not affected TN or South as a market. So inflation is a story which is, it's okay as far as South is concerned. But the behavior has been different in different ways. The first one is basically the comparison between unbranded and branded. That's only primarily in foods, right? You see the extent to which unbranded has crashed in here, as far as South is concerned, 7% crash, whereas the branded products have only reduced by about 1% or so, if you compare like to like of two markets. And if you see the growth of price segments, clearly the premium one has not grown as much as mass. So those are two stories. One is unbranded has not grown, but within brands, the mass segment seems to have grown. That's the only way in which we can find out how this market has responded to inflation. Of course, there's a high reliance on promotion, but who is not? Which market is not? Every market relies on promotion. So those are about inflation and how they are. So in this situation, what are some of the words that I would like to leave you with as far as the South market is concerned and what actions we can take? One, understand the product codes and hero them pretty well. Clean, hygienic, natural, authentic, and value. These are words that are music to the eyes of, or to the ears of a South consumer. Convenience in purchase is desired because this is a convenience-seeking market. Bundling, simplification of delivery, ease of search, etc. Convenience even in payment, if you're able to do that in some of your product categories, nothing like it. And when it comes to communication, engaging, perhaps even layered, script, but with all that layering, etc., still talk common sense, still have your cultural sensitivity to this market. There's a huge opportunity. There's a notoriety for being loyal in this market. So therefore, if you are an early bird and if you've got some amount of early, head start, you're likely to be hugely successful here. There is an urgency to deliver value here, and then an urgency in seeking value as well. So remember that. So in sum and substance, that's what I have here to say. So this is a market which has not been affected too much by inflation. It's a market where housewives are a little older, but the family sizes are small. There is affluence. People want to save as well as splurge. So all of these exist in this place. And this is a market which expects relevance, logic, and rationality in most of the things that they do. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
When it comes to online purchase, FMCG is just 5% in South.
Yeah.
What does it mean? Does it mean that still the consumer wants to experience it live, whatever he is consuming, personally witnessing, testing it, touching it, and then experiencing it, and then buying it? Is that the culture driving or something else?
So like I said, I think it is more demographic driven. Like we said, the housewife, average age is higher as far as South is concerned. Large number of percentage of housewives who are in excess of 45 years of age. So discomfort with dealing with the online purchase modes for grocery exists. At the same time, if you look at the younger audience, you saw that mobile phones, purchasing through mobiles, etc., huge as far as the percentages were much higher than the rest of India. But only grocery, perhaps to do with the demographics of the housewife. I won't put any cultural nuance to it at all.
I'd like Mr. Umana to illustrate Mr. Ramakrishnan.